Bullies mock a newly transferred black student, unaware he's a lethal fighter. This story will boil your blood, and then make you cheer. When Dorian stepped through the grand iron gates of Winston University, full scholarship in hand, he thought his biggest battle would be acing advanced calculus. Little did he know, the real challenge wasn't academic. It was the privileged frat boys who took one look at him and decided he didn't belong. They saw his skin color and assumed he was an easy target, a nobody. But what they didn't realize. Before Dorian became a straight-A student, he spent years training in some of the toughest dojos in Chicago. And when you corner a fighter, especially one with his skill set, well, let's just say some hard lessons were about to be served. Lessons in karma, in justice, and in underestimating the wrong person. Let's go back to his first day at Winston. Picture it. A sea of designer backpacks, custom-tailored blazers, and kids whose last names carried more weight than their GPAs. And then there's Dorian, walking in with a second-hand blazer, one his mother had carefully pressed the night before, a symbol of everything they'd sacrificed for this moment. He's heading to his advanced physics class when he hears it, low enough to sound like a whisper, but just loud enough to cut through the air. Must be lost. Community college is downtown. The voice belongs to Chad Thompson, the golden boy of Winston, grinning like he just cracked the funniest joke in history. That smirk on his face. It probably cost more than Dorian's entire wardrobe. But Dorian, he doesn't react. Shoulders back, head high. Growing up on the south side of Chicago taught him an important lesson. Sometimes the smartest move isn't to react at all. Let them think they've got you figured out. Inside his backpack, 3 acceptance letters from Ivy League schools sit folded next to medals from martial arts championships. If they knew who they were dealing with, those smirks would vanish real quick. The whispers don't stop. They follow him into the classroom. Chad leans over to his frat brothers, loud enough for the entire room to hear. Probably an affirmative action case. But karma. Oh, karma has a sense of humor. Because when Professor Martinez throws out a question about quantum mechanics, one that leaves the entire class scratching their heads, guess who's the only one raising his hand? Dorian. And the way he effortlessly breaks down the theory. The way he leaves even the professor impressed. The look on Chad's face. Priceless. But this isn't where it ends. This is where it begins. After class, Chad and his crew are waiting, blocking the hallway, arms crossed. "Hey, scholarship kid," Chad says, his voice dripping with fake friendliness. "We've got a little tradition here at Winston. New students have to prove they belong." Dorian feels his muscles tense, but it's not fear. It's instinct. Training kicking in. He could shut this down in seconds, but he remembers his mother's words. "You're not there to fight, Dorian. You're there to win. Win at their game." And so he does. He pulls out his phone, hits record, and captures every word of their so-called tradition. Years of dealing with bullies taught him one thing. Documentation is power. "Look, guys," he says calmly, keeping his phone steady. "I'm just here to study, same as you." Chad steps closer, that $1,000,000 smile twisting into something uglier. "Same as us. That's cute. But let's be real, you're not exactly Winston material." His friends snicker, too busy basking in their superiority to notice how Dorian subtly shifts his stance. Weight redistributing, body coiling like a spring. But then, something unexpected. Jessica Chen, editor of the student newspaper, walks by. And she's been investigating Winston's history of discrimination. Her phone. Also recording. See, that's the thing about bullies. They're so focused on their target, they never see the bigger picture. Later that day, Dorian overhears Chad's crew plotting. This time they're planning something bigger. An elaborate humiliation during the upcoming physics project presentations. But what they don't realize, Dorian is always 3 steps ahead. Those years of martial arts, they didn't just teach him how to fight. They taught him patience, strategy, how to use an opponent's strength against them. That evening, in the quiet of the library, he makes his first move. "Hey, Chad," he calls out casually, his voice carrying across the room. Looking forward to working on that physics project together. The confusion on Chad's face. Priceless. Because that's what happens when your target stops acting like a target. The next morning, Dorian arrives at his locker to find it covered in papers, printouts of Winston's scholarship requirements. A not-so-subtle message. But something else catches his eye. Tucked in the corner, a black and white photo. Winston University's class of 1963. And not a single person of color in sight. That's when Sarah, a junior who works in the archives, approaches him. Her voice is barely above a whisper. They did the same thing to my brother 2 years ago. He transferred out. Couldn't take it. Her hands tremble as she pulls out more documents. Photos. Evidence. Chad's fraternity, Beta Theta. It's been keeping people like Dorian out for over 60 years. But here's the thing. While they're busy playing their little games, Dorian is playing something else. Chess, not checkers. At lunch, he watches as Chad mocks another freshman, this time a Latino kid named Miguel. Dorian's fists clench under the table. Every instinct tells him to step in. But instead he pulls out his phone and starts typing. See, Chad's crew isn't just about bullying. They're running a cheating ring. Rich kids paying them to take tests, write papers. And Dorian? He's gathering receipts. Later that day, Chad's right-hand man, Brad, tries to sound threatening. You should just leave. Dorian smiles. The kind of smile you learn after years of facing down opponents in the ring. Thanks for the advice, he says smoothly. But I think I'll stick around. Things are about to get interesting. And then, the gym. The moment everything changes. Chad and his boys swagger in while Dorian's mid-workout. They don't know he's been training since he was 12. All they see is another chance to humiliate the scholarship kid. Hey look boys, Chad sneers. Trying to bulk up so you actually belong here. The gym falls silent. Everyone is watching. And then Chad points to the boxing ring in the corner. How about a friendly competition, he says. Winner gets respect. Loser. Well, losers know where they belong. What Chad doesn't realize. He just stepped into Dorian's arena. And this is going to be a lesson he'll never forget. Chad had trained with the best boxing coaches money could buy. State championships, private lessons, sparring in luxury gyms. He thought he was untouchable. But what he didn't know, Dorian had been doing more than just training, he'd been teaching. Since the age of 16, he had been instructing advanced martial arts classes, honing not just his own skills but coaching others on how to dismantle an opponent with precision. You sure about this? Dorian asks, his voice quiet, steady. He's giving Chad one final out, one last chance to back away with his pride intact. But Chad. He's already pulling off his designer hoodie, rolling his shoulders, flashing that cocky grin like he's got this in the bag. The gym is buzzing now. Word spreads fast at Winston, especially when there's a chance to see a spectacle. Students pour in from every corner of campus, surrounding the ring. And then something incredible happens. Miguel, the Latino freshman Chad had bullied the day before, lifts his phone and starts live streaming. Sarah from the archives follows suit, and soon others do too. Even some of Chad's own fraternity brothers can't resist, because there's nothing quite like watching a bully get what's coming to him. First one to tap out loses. Chad announces, bouncing on his toes like he's already won.